In an empty hospital hallway in Denver, at 3 in the morning, a young woman collapsed. Her medical bills were exorbitant. Her mother was dying, and she had just whispered for the first time in her life, "God, why have you forsaken me?" But at that exact moment, when her faith was crumbling, a complete stranger stopped beside her. He had no reason to be there, but something made him return. And the words he spoke that morning changed everything. What began as an impossible encounter turned into a miracle of love, faith, and redemption that you won't believe. Because sometimes, God answers exactly when we think He's gone. It was 3:30 in the morning, when Clara Sullivan felt she could no longer breathe properly. She was sitting on the cold floor of that hospital corridor, leaning against the cold white wall, hugging her knees as if she could protect herself from everything that was crumbling around her. The fluorescent lights flickered occasionally, making that irritating noise that only those who have spent the night in a hospital know. The silence was so heavy that she could hear her own heart beating erratically. Her mother, Dorothy, had been hospitalized for almost 3 weeks. Advanced stage lung cancer. Clara was 26 years old, worked as an administrative assistant at a small accounting firm in Denver, earned just enough to pay the rent on the tiny apartment where she lived with her mother, but never imagined that life would turn upside down like that. The hospital bills already exceeded $80,000. $80,000. She couldn't even process that number properly. The health insurance covered part of it, but the rest was a mountain she simply didn't know how to climb. That night or early morning, I don't know, Clara had just left her mother's room. Dorothy was sleeping, sedated, breathing with the help of machines. The doctor had called Clara earlier and said in that tired voice of someone who had already given the same news 1,000 times, "Look, we're doing everything we can, but we need to be realistic. Her condition is serious, very serious." Clara had thanked him, nodded as if she understood, but inside she was screaming. She left the room, walked down that empty third-floor hallway, far from the nurses, far from the other patients, far from everything, and simply collapsed. She sat on the floor, leaned her head against the wall, and let the tears fall uncontrollably. It wasn't a delicate cry, you know. It was that ugly, desperate cry of someone at their breaking point. Her shoulders trembled, her breath faltered, and in the midst of it all, she whispered the words she never imagined she would say. "God, why did you let me get this far? I tried to have faith. I tried to believe. But where are you now?" Clara had been raised in the church. Her mother had always been a woman of faith, taking her every Sunday to that little Baptist church in the Denver suburbs, teaching her that God cares, that God provides, that God never abandons, and Clara believed it. She truly believed it. But now, sitting on that cold floor, watching her mother wither away in the death's mount, she felt her faith slipping through her fingers like sand. For the first time in her life, she doubted. She doubted everything. It was at that exact moment that she heard footsteps. Slow. They stopped near her. Clara quickly wiped her face and was embarrassed, trying to compose herself. But when she looked up, she saw a man standing there, about 2 meters away. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with messy brown hair, unshaven, wearing jeans and a worn leather jacket. His eyes were dark, but there was something there, a gentleness that could be felt from afar. "Hey," he said softly, almost whispering. "Are you okay?" Clara gave a weak laugh, wiping away tears. "I'm fine. Sorry, I just needed a minute." The man stood still for a few seconds, as if deciding something. Then, slowly, he sat down on the floor, leaning against the opposite wall, keeping a respectful distance. He didn't get too close. He didn't invade her space, but he didn't leave either. "I don't want to bother you," he said, "but I was just passing by. I was going to leave, and I don't know, I felt like I had to come back." Clara looked at him, confused. "Go back?" "Yes, I saw you crying, and something told me not to leave. Sounds strange and right, but it's the truth." She remained silent, staring at the stranger. She should have found it bizarre, she should have been afraid, but strangely she wasn't. She only felt an overwhelming weariness and a sudden urge to confide in someone who didn't know the whole story, who wouldn't offer opinions, who would just listen. My mother is dying, Clara blurted out suddenly, her voice hoarse. Cancer. The hospital bills are overwhelming me. I have no one left. My father died when I was 12. It's just me and her. And I don't know what to do anymore. The man simply listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix anything. He just stood there, present. And the worst part, Clara continued, the words pouring out in a torrent she could no longer contain, is that I always had faith. I always believed that God was in control. But now I look at all this and think, where is he? You know, where is he when I need him most? The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. The man took a deep breath, looked at the ceiling for a moment, then turned his gaze back to Clara. My name is Ethan, he said softly. Ethan Cole. And I understand what you're feeling. I really do. Clara wiped her nose with her sweatshirt sleeve. You don't know me. That's true, Ethan agreed. But I know what it's like to question God when everything falls apart. I lost my younger brother 3 years ago. Car accident. He was 21. I was angry with God for a long time. I questioned everything. I thought about giving up my faith. Clara felt her chest tighten. And what did you do? Ethan gave a sad half-smile. I understood something that took me a long time to grasp. God never promised that life would be easy. He never said there wouldn't be suffering, pain, loss. But he promised that he would be with us. Always. Even when it seems like he's gone, he's still there. Clara shook her head, her voice weak. But I can't feel him right now. I know, Ethan replied calmly. But sometimes God sends other people to remind us that he's still here. And maybe, just maybe, I came back to this hallway because he wanted you to know that. His words struck Clara in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't preaching. It wasn't cheap self-help. It was someone who had been through the fire and was on the other side, extending a hand. You're not alone, Ethan said, his voice firm but full of gentleness. I don't know how all this will end. I don't know what will happen to your mother. But I know you don't have to carry this burden alone. Clara felt new tears welling up. But this time they were different. It wasn't just despair. There was something more there. A glimmer of hope that she thought had died. Why did you do this? She asked, her voice choked with emotion. Why did you come back? You don't even know me. Ethan shrugged, with a small smile. Because someone did the same for me once. When I was at rock bottom, a complete stranger stopped, listened to me, reminded me that I wasn't alone, and changed everything. So, I'm just passing it on. Clara stared at him, incredulous. In the middle of the night, in an empty hospital corridor, a stranger had stopped and offered her exactly what she needed. Presence. Not ready-made answers, not magic solutions, just presence. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan nodded. You're welcome, and look, I know it might sound strange, but if you need help with anything, let me know. I work with a non-profit organization here in Denver. We help families with medical expenses, connect people with resources, things like that. It's not a miracle, but it could be a start. Clara's eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously? He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. Call me tomorrow, or better yet, today, since it's already past 3. We'll see what we can do. Clara took the card with trembling hands, reading the name. Ethan Cole, Assistance Coordinator, Hope Springs Foundation. She looked at him, in disbelief. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything now, Ethan replied, standing up slowly. Just call us. Promise. I promise. He gave another kind smile and started to walk away. But before turning down the hallway, he stopped and looked back. Clara, God hasn't abandoned you. He was just waiting for the right moment to remind you of that. And then he left, leaving Clara alone in that hallway again. But this time, the silence was different. It wasn't empty. It was full of possibility. As the sun began to rise over Denver, Clara was still in the hospital, but something about her had changed. She returned to her mother's room, sat in the uncomfortable chair beside the bed, and carefully held Dorothy's hand. making sure not to disconnect the wires and tubes. Her mother was still sleeping, her breathing weak but steady. Clara looked at her face. Thin, pale, so different from the strong woman who had raised her alone, and whispered, "Mom, I think God is still here." She couldn't quite explain it. It didn't make sense. But that encounter with Ethan had affected her in a way that nothing else had in the last few weeks. It was as if God had sent a message just when she was about to give up. The next day, Clara called the number on the card. A receptionist answered, and when she mentioned Ethan Cole's name, she was quickly transferred. His voice on the other end of the line was warm and recognizable. "Clara, I'm so glad you called. How are you? And your mother?" She explained the whole situation, the diagnosis, the debts, the lack of resources. Ethan listened patiently and, in the end, said something that left Clara speechless. "Look, we have an emergency assistance program. It won't cover everything, but it can provide significant relief. I'll schedule a meeting with you this afternoon, if possible. We'll fill out the paperwork and speed up the process. Bring all the documentation you have, okay?" Clara could hardly believe it. "Ethan, why are you doing this?" He chuckled softly. "Because that's why I'm here, and because I believe you crossed my path for a reason." In the afternoon, Clara went to the Hope Springs Foundation office, a simple building near the center. Ethan greeted her with a genuine smile and took her to a meeting room where he explained everything. The foundation helped families in medical emergencies by connecting them with community resources, donors, government programs, and even fundraising campaigns. It wasn't a quick process, but it was real. "We've already helped over 200 families this year alone," Ethan explained, as she filled out the forms. "And every story is different. But we believe that no one should have to choose between the health of their loved ones and paying the bills." Clara looked at him, her eyes welling with tears. "I don't even know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me now. Just don't give up, okay? Because there's still a lot of story to unfold." In the following weeks, help came from places Clara never imagined. The foundation managed to secure a significant discount on the hospital bill through negotiations. An online campaign raised almost $15,000. Volunteers began to appear, offering ready-made meals, rides to the hospital, companionship, and in the midst of it all, Ethan was always there. He visited Dorothy regularly, bringing her flowers and talking to her when she was awake and lucid. Dorothy quickly became attached to him, calling him "my angel." Ethan laughed, but Clara could see in his eyes that it affected him too. "Your mother is an incredible woman," he said one night after a visit. They had gone for coffee at the hospital cafeteria, and Clara realized that those moments with Ethan had become the lightest part of her days. "She means everything to me," Clara replied, stirring her coffee with a spoon. "And I'm afraid of losing her." Ethan reached out and touched her hand, a simple gesture, but full of meaning. "Whatever the end of this story may be, Clara, you won't go through it alone, I promise." She looked at him, and something stirred inside her chest. It wasn't just gratitude. It was more than that. Ethan wasn't just someone who had appeared to help. He had become someone she wanted to be around. Always. Days turned into weeks. And against all odds, Dorothy began to improve. It wasn't an overnight miracle, but it was progress. The doctors adjusted her treatment, her body responded better, and slowly she regained strength. Clara could hardly believe it when the oncologist said, almost 2 months after that terrible night in the hallway, "Look, it's still too early to declare victory, but her condition has stabilized. With the right treatment and monitoring, she has a real chance of living a few more years with a good quality of life." Clara left that appointment crying, but this time they were tears of relief, gratitude, and renewed hope. She called Ethan immediately. "My mother will be okay," she said between sobs. "She'll be okay, Ethan." On the other end of the line, she heard his voice, also choked with emotion. "I knew it. I knew God wouldn't leave you alone." When Dorothy was discharged from the hospital, it was a small but meaningful celebration. Ethan was there, along with some volunteers from the foundation, helping to carry Dorothy's things to the car. Clara watched everything with a smile on her face, her heart filled with an emotion she couldn't name. Later, When they were back in the apartment and Dorothy was resting in her room, Clara and Ethan sat in the small living room on the worn sofa. A comfortable silence hung between them until Clara finally said, "I wanted to ask you a question." "You can ask. Why did you actually go back down that hallway? That night, you said you felt you had to go back, but why?" Ethan looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then he sighed and said, "Because I was walking down the hallway coming back from the ICU waiting room. My uncle was hospitalized there. He passed away that morning." Clara felt breathless. "Ethan, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "I know. And I didn't tell you before because I didn't want you to feel guilty or weird. But the truth is, I had just said goodbye to him. I was leaving the hospital completely devastated. And when I saw you in that hallway, something inside me said, 'Stop. Come back. She needs you.' And I realized that maybe I needed that too. I needed to be reminded that there's still purpose, you know? That pain isn't the end of the story." Clara felt tears welling up again. "You saved me that night." "No," Ethan replied softly. "God saved you. I was just the messenger." The silence that followed was different. There was something there, unspoken, but felt by both. A connection that had been born in pain, but was transforming into something deeper, more beautiful. "I don't know how this works," Clara said softly, almost afraid to speak. "But I think you've become one of the most important people in my life." Ethan smiled, that gentle smile she had grown to love. "I feel the same." And so it was, in a simple and genuine way, that their friendship began to transform into something more. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rushed. It was natural, as if God had prepared that path from the beginning. In the following months, Ethan and Clara became inseparable. They went for walks in Denver's parks, talked for hours about faith, life, and dreams. He introduced her to his community, the church he attended, and Clara felt welcomed in a way she hadn't felt in years. Dorothy adored Ethan, and whenever he appeared, her face lit up. "He's special, honey," Dorothy said one afternoon as they prepared dinner. "Don't let him get away." Clara laughed, but her heart knew her mother was right. One night, 6 months after that encounter in the hallway, Ethan took Clara to dinner at a simple but cozy restaurant. Afterward, they went for a walk in a park where the city lights shone in the distance. Ethan stopped under a lit tree and held her hands. "Clara," he began, his voice firm but full of emotion, "I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that God puts people in our lives exactly when we need them. That night in the hospital, I thought I was just helping a stranger. But the truth is, you changed my life as much as I, perhaps, changed yours." Clara felt her heart race. "You showed me that it's worth believing in love again, that it's worth having hope. And I can't imagine my life without you." He paused, his eyes shining. "I love you, Clara. In a way I didn't even know was possible." Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were tears of pure happiness. "I love you too," she whispered. And when Ethan kissed her there, under those lights, Clara understood a truth she would carry with her for the rest of her life. God had never abandoned her. Even in the darkest night, He was preparing a miracle. A year and a half after that dawn that changed everything, Clara stood in front of the mirror in the room that had once been just hers and her mother's, but which was now part of a new, larger house, full of light. She adjusted her simple white dress, with its delicate lace on, and took a deep breath. It was her wedding day. Dorothy entered the room, walking slowly but steadily, with a huge smile on her face. Her hair had grown back after chemo, gray and short, but she was radiant. The doctors had said she was in remission. Remission, a word Clara had learned to love. "You look beautiful, my daughter," Dorothy said, her eyes welling up with tears. Clara turned and hugged her mother carefully, trying not to wrinkle her dress but needing to feel her close. "Do you think I'm making the right choice, Mom?" Dorothy chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair away from Clara's face. "Honey, Ethan is the answer to a prayer I didn't even know I needed to make. God put him in your path exactly when you needed him most. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is." Clara smiled, her heart full. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too. Now come on. There's a man downstairs dying of anxiety to marry you." The ceremony was small and intimate, in the same Baptist church where Clara had grown up. Friends, family, volunteers from the Hope Springs Foundation, everyone was there. But when Clara walked in and saw Ethan waiting at the altar, wearing a simple suit with that smile she had come to love, the rest of the world disappeared. She walked slowly toward him, holding the bouquet of white flowers in hands that trembled slightly. When she got close, Ethan extended his hand, and she took it, feeling its firmness, its warmth, its promise. The pastor, a white-haired gentleman who knew the couple's story, began the ceremony with words that touched everyone present. Sometimes, God finds us in the most unlikely places. In a hospital corridor, in the middle of a desperate night, and he uses ordinary people to perform extraordinary miracles. Ethan and Clara are living proof that God never abandons us, even when we think he's gone. When the time came for the vows, Ethan held Clara's hands tenderly, and his voice choked with emotion said, "Clara, that night in the hospital, I had just lost someone I loved. I was empty, lost. But when I saw you in that hallway, God whispered in my heart, 'Come back. She needs you.' And I came back. But what I didn't know is that I needed you too. You taught me to believe again. You showed me that love can be born even in pain, and I promise, before God and everyone here, that I will spend the rest of my life loving you, honoring you, and reminding you that you will never, ever be alone." Clara was crying without even trying to hide it. She took a deep breath and recited her own vows. "Ethan, I was going through the darkest moment of my life when you came into my life. I had lost faith, lost hope, but you didn't judge me. You didn't try to fix me. You simply stayed, and in that simple act of staying, you showed me God's love. I love you with all that I am. And I promise to build a life with you based on faith, love, and gratitude, because every day with you is a miracle that I will never take for granted." When the pastor said, "You may kiss the bride," Ethan pulled Clara close and kissed her gently, while everyone applauded and cried together. It was one of those moments when you feel like heaven is close to earth. The reception was at their new house, a modest but lively place with a backyard where they had set up tables and chairs. There was live music, homemade food prepared by friends from church, laughter, and stories. Dorothy sat in a special chair that Ethan had prepared for her, surrounded by people, radiant. In the middle of the party, Ethan took Clara to a quieter corner of the yard, where they could see the mountains in the distance, illuminated by the orange sunset. "There's something I've never told you," he said, holding her hands. Clara frowned, curious. "What?" "That night in the hospital, when I saw you in the hallway, it wasn't the first time I'd seen you." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Ethan gave an embarrassed smile. 3 days ago, I was in the hospital cafeteria visiting my uncle. You walked past me carrying a tray of food, visibly exhausted, and dropped everything on the floor. I helped you pick it up. You thanked me quickly and ran off. Don't you remember?" Clara's eyes widened, her memory slowly returning. "Wait, was that you?" He nodded. "It was. And I kept thinking about you. I don't know why, but I did. And when I saw you in that hallway crying, something inside me told me I had to do something, that it wasn't a coincidence." Clara felt a shiver. God was already preparing this before we even knew. "Exactly," Ethan whispered. He knew what we were going to need before we even realized it. They stood there embraced, in silence, simply feeling each other's presence and the presence of God between them. Months turned into years. Clara and Ethan built a life together, full of purpose. She began working at the Hope Springs Foundation alongside him, helping other families going through what she had experienced. Dorothy also became a volunteer, visiting patients in the hospital, bringing words of hope and faith. Their story became a testimony in church, at events, in bar conversations. Not because it was perfect. They had difficult days, arguments, challenges like any couple, but because it was real. It was proof that God works. One night, almost 3 years after that fateful dawn, Clara and Ethan returned to the hospital, not because someone was sick, but because they had made a point of going. They walked to the 3rd floor, to that same corridor where it all began. It was empty, just like that night. The fluorescent lights flickered in the same irritating way. But now, standing there hand in hand, that place wasn't a symbol of despair. It was a symbol of hope. It was here, Clara said softly, looking at the floor where she had sat. It was here, Ethan repeated, pulling her closer. Thank you for coming back, she whispered. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for letting God use that moment to change our lives. They stayed there for a few more minutes, in silence, giving thanks. Giving thanks for the pain that brought them to each other. Giving thanks for the faith that was tested but strengthened. Giving thanks for every detail that brought them there. When they left the hospital that night, hand in hand, Clara looked up and saw the stars shining in the Denver sky, and she knew, deep in her heart, that God had never abandoned her. Not for a second. He was just waiting for the right moment, the right time to send Ethan back, the perfect moment to show that miracles happen in the most unlikely places. And this is the perfect moment to prove that, even in the darkest hours of the night, He is there. It always has been. It always will be. Sometimes, God answers our prayers in ways we never imagined. Clara asked for a miracle in that hallway, and God sent Ethan. What began as a simple act of kindness turned into a story of love, faith, and redemption that changed lives forever. Because God's help is never far away. It just waits for the perfect moment to arrive. And when it does, it transforms everything. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, comment below what you thought, and subscribe to the channel to keep hearing stories like this. Because everyone needs to be reminded, God never abandons. He always knows the right time. I've left a video here that I guarantee you'll enjoy.